Jacob Marley is dead. This must be distinctly understood, or nothing wonderful can come of the podcast you are about to listen to.
I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day. I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day in the morning.
So did you hear about CM Punk?
I did not hear about CM Punk.
So you've heard about AEW, though, the brand new wrestling company that's
Sure,
like rivaling WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 7 years ago, the biggest star in wrestling besides John Cena, CM Punk, he walked away from WWE just right out of the gate. Like he was he was out of nowhere. He's gone.
Right.
And for 7 years, fans in arenas have been chanting CM Punk, CM Punk, and they have been crying his name out in vain. And this past Friday, when we're recording this, he came back to AEW. And he talked about how he left pro wrestling and WWE wasn't pro wrestling, so it's been much longer since he's left. But he makes this little moment, this little some people were upset by the way he left the business, right? And would talk about the business after he left. And he says, I can be apologize or empathize with you on that one. If you can empathize or understand the fact that I had to leave that place so I could get healthy because I wasn't healthy and I was sick. Just like this guy needs to get healthy and find some love in his life. And this movie Scrooged, Bill Murray needs to find some love in his life because he's sick. The man is sick, John Newman.
Oh, wow. Okay. And there we are. Welcome to Jacob Marley is Dead. This is a podcast that, as I've said on this show before, is occasionally about wrestling, but mostly about A Christmas Carol. I am your host, John.
And I am his sidekick, Jimmy. How you doing, John?
I am good. I'm busy.
Yeah,
for those of you who aren't friends of the pod, I'm a high school teacher, and we are back in the building for the first time in a year and change. And kids start next week, so we've just been getting ready for that. And that is number one why several episodes of the show have not come out yet, including the last episode of The Guy Pearce, which hopefully, if you're listening to this, you've also listened to that at this point. Yeah. And the first episode of The Scrooged, neither of those have been edited yet, so a little peek behind the curtain. But they will be as things calm down.
Doesn't matter, John. It doesn't matter. Time is relative, right? That's what Einstein said, right? Einstein, guy with the funny hair and tongue sticking out. You know the guy.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, we're talking about Bill Murray's Scrooged.
Also a guy with funny hair.
Yeah. Especially in this movie.
Oh, man. There's a lot of funny hair pieces in this. Hair goes all over the place in this movie. And there's some really good, interesting takes. Later on with the future, we can talk about some design there.
Sure.
Real overall, but Murray's hair and Bobcat's hair are chef's kiss. They're just amazing. They're great.
Oh man. Well, with that in mind, why waste time? Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's get into it.
This is Jacob Marley is Dead, and we are concluding our conversation about 1988's Scrooged.
In those ships, all 3 on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day. And what was in those ships, all 3 on Christmas Day in the morning?
So when we last left our hero, Frank Cross, who is our Scrooge stand-in for this version, played by Bill Murray, he had just interacted with the cab-driving ghost of Christmas past and he was kind of on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and he was going to talk to an ex-flame named Claire, played by Karen Allen, and that's kind of where we're going to pick up here.
Yeah, we establish who Karen Allen is, how they split right at the end of the Ghost of Christmas Past sequence over a disagreement about, their directions of their lives. Yeah. And Cross is right on the edge right at this moment. Like, he's just about to break. And then he does.
Yeah. But before he does, Bobcat Goldthwait does, because Elliot Loudermilk, who was fired by Frank Cross at the start of the movie, has been slowly spiraling out of control. We saw him getting drunk, walking home, getting splashed by water, kicked up by a car, and now he is selling his own blood to a blood bank to, I guess, make some rent money for the apartment that he's in now that his wife's kicked him out.
Yeah, let's not get back into that conversation, however you edited that masterpiece. Anyway, so here's the deal. We've got him getting some amount of money. We don't know how much. And the old trope of some juice and a cookie.
Yeah.
This is a go-to routine. Somebody somewhere said oh, just take my blood and I get a cookie? There's comedy in that. So it's a good bit here. It's
was
been done
selling blood a thing in the 80s?
Totally. It was.
It's not a thing now, right? I know you can sell platelets, but
yeah, maybe that's what maybe it was that type of thing where somebody heard half of a fact and just assumed that just blood in general was how you got the money. But this has been done in many different shows and movies. I can remember Will Smith on an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was giving blood all the time, or at least that's what my memory is. It's going to turn out not to be Will Smith at all in some other show, but I'm not 85% sure it was Will Smith in an episode trying to give blood and gave it 3 times a week and was done. And Steve Martin in The Jerk famously was doing that for one bit in the movie.
Sure.
I know a lot of facts about nothing.
Oh man. Well, Frank Cross, he is going to this homeless shelter where Karen Allen's character Claire works, and I feel like this is interesting. They always position the Belle figure as the exact opposite of the Scrooge figure, where he's this hotshot TV executive, right, pouring millions of dollars into mindless entertainment, and she's taking care of the homeless people in New York on Christmas. We've seen her working in a children's hospital. We've seen her working with homeless people in Victorian London. They always position her as this, charitable person when she comes back into the narrative this way. And
the novella is pretty much clear that she's not working in an orphanage or anything. She just has a large family, right?
Yeah.
And has a husband who we know sees Scrooge on one Christmas Eve. That interaction, which we have seen in one version of A Christmas Carol.
Right.
Which Scrooge was that? That was...
I think that was Seymour Hicks.
I think that was Seymour Hicks.
No, that might have been... Was it Alistair Sim? I don't know.
No, I think it was Seymour because it was more recent. But anyway... Right. It was when Seymour was trying to be young Scrooge for the one young Scrooge scene, and it wasn't working at all, which is kind of what they do here. They play their younger selves besides the 1950s flashback. But anyway, there we get a pretty honest, I think, interpretation of she's a woman of some status of society, and they just differ a little bit, right? Most versions now make it, like you say, she's a saint. She's out there doing the Lord's work.
I wonder too how much of it is about giving her a little more agency, because if you really think about the novella, when Scrooge sees her at the end with all the children and stuff, all it's basically saying is this, you could have had this life, right? This woman could have pumped out a bunch of kids for you and you could have been happy. It's almost less about her than it is about Scrooge's sort of lack of family.
Tactfully said, John. I think I think you're right in that it's just a traditional life is what he's giving up here. And I think that at the end of the day, they're just trying to make her the opposite of him. That's what it's going for here. It's if he is bad, if he is evil, right, then she left him. She must be good. And she has to be that extreme. And this is probably, besides maybe the Nick Cage version, the most extreme of that, right?
Yeah.
She's pretty saintly in the Nick Cage one, but this one's pretty darn close to being the most holier than thou.
Yeah, definitely. So this scene where he comes to the shelter is kind of weird.
It's bad. And it's bad because of Bill Murray.
Bad.
It's bad because of Bill Murray. He's acting like, deep cut here, he's acting like Martin Short in the movie Clifford.
Wow.
Do you know that movie?
I don't know that movie, but if you're going to bring Martin Short into it, I mean, I feel like Martin Short's one of those actors who it's either really good or really, really bad.
When he's on, there is none better. When he is on, he's amazing. He's white heat. Like, he's that hot, right?
Yeah.
When it is... By the way, I listened to Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about that today, and I was like, I'm totally bringing it up in the podcast, and I shoehorned that in so good there. So good! Anyway, so, and then on the other side, you have him when he is a red dwarf. He is the weakest of all. Like, he's so bad, he's about to go supernova. He's breaking down. And two references. Okay, so the deal is, you have Martin Short in that playing a juvenile delinquent brat with some sort of problem, right? He's playing that part as a full-grown adult.
Right.
Opposite adult actors playing adults.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Oh, boy.
That's Bill Murray in this scene.
So I think that I will go so far as to say I don't 100% blame it on Bill Murray. He's the one giving the performance, but I think that based on our conversation last time, we can also put some of that blame on Richard Donner, who, as we know, was pushing him to give this like broad, big performance when he wanted to do something more subtle. I think that comes through. This is definitely an actor trying to give the director what they want and failing because they don't believe it. Right. Even though they're committing to it and they're doing it full out, they don't quite believe it. And look at Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler believes it. When he goes full stupid in like Billy Madison or Happy Gilmore, he's committed to that stupidity. Right? Yeah. And Bill Murray is, the problem here is like in one scene, he's having a very powerful argument with his brother. And the other scene, he's Will Ferrell in Step Brothers. And I like Step Brothers, but I don't like my Step Brothers mixed with some really heavy crap. And you get that all intertwined, and you get this scene where there's some serious stuff going down, and it just is undercut by his performance. Yeah, it is that fakery thing where you feel like he's not committed to it, and therefore you can tell how uncommitted he is. So just to describe this, like when he leaves the studio where they're filming the Christmas Carol special, he's kind of like ranting and raving his thoughts out loud, and then it's implied that he's been doing that the entire way to this homeless shelter because he kind of comes into frame doing it, right? Either this place is right around the block, or he's been doing it for an entire walk. And I mean, it's New York City, so it's like not like that would be out of the ordinary, I guess. But but like, and here's my problem with it. Too. They didn't run into each other. She didn't work that close by and decide, you know what, I'm gonna pop in. I walk by it every day. It would be awkward if I don't say something because what if we do just run into each other on the street and break the ice? And who knows if she has this strong of a passion for him to instantly be back, like wanting to get back together with him, then that thought would have crossed her mind. No, it is down 16 blocks and he's been muttering like a madman, but this is pre-Giuliani New York, so they didn't knock him on the head and throw him to Urinetown. So there we go. How insane is it right now that the phrase pre-Giuliani New York implies a bad thing? Dude, I'm not touching that one with a Giuliani length pole that we would beat on the homeless with. Anyway, so let's move along. So there's these like comedy homeless people, right?
Nice transition.
Man, that wasn't even intentional. It's beautiful.
No, it wasn't, but it was the natural flow.
These homeless people that will be beaten off with Giuliani's homeless beating stick eventually.
Oh, God. That's our new t-shirt.
Who, like, they're homeless, and they definitely play them as, like, mentally handicapped or slightly schizophrenic or something. There's, like, a weird disconnect with reality happening, because they think he's Richard Burton.
Well, I think some of them are actually seeing something here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of them are playing along with it, right?
Sure.
Or just getting lost in it, maybe. I mean, we're not doctors. I don't want to start going around saying this is a good representation of something or not. I'm not going to say it. I will say that in a scene where they are supposed to be of some sort of they're supposed to be quote unquote crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are the least over-the-top performance in the scene. I am not going to stop harping on this. Bill Murray
that's pretty wild, isn't it?
Is out crazying these supposed to be crazy people in this homeless shelter. And that's not a good thing. Even though he's supposed to be fearing God at this moment and like going through the journey and like hellfire and brimstone are going on around him. And he just went through the highlights of his past that suck. Like those are bad reruns. Like it's not this level at this moment. And yeah, this was a bad direction, obviously.
Yeah, so the way the scene plays out, they like think he's Richard Burton. He does like a fake Richard Burton accent for them for a little bit.
Really
one of these guys, one of these guys, Herman, played by Michael Pollard, is going to be important for a scene that comes later on, and this is kind of where he's introduced. So, so Claire comes up to him, and I just don't understand why she is so nice to him in these scenes. Like, there is no tension between them. They act like they just are people who have been friends forever without any of the drama of like him basically ditching her to promote his show in the past. Like, I don't get it. I think it's one of the absolute weakest things about this movie is this relationship.
She is extremely weak in this dynamic. And it's bad.
Yeah.
It's a bad take. She does her best with what she is given. I will say that.
It's Karen Allen. She's great.
And she's got an amazing delivery coming up later. Like,
Cruella
DeVille.
Totally.
We'll talk about it. But she's just a punching bag in this scene. And maybe that's the point leading for what's later. But I think she's supposed to
come off as so altruistic that like even his awfulness can't like push her away. I think that he is so terrible though. Like A, as a person, and B, his performance is like pretty shaky in this scene too. That anytime they're like, Bill Murray and Karen Allen have zero chemistry.
They are not Harrison Ford and Karen Allen. That is not as bad.
Yeah. It's whatever the exact platonic opposite of that is.
Which, by the way, oh my gosh, go back and watch Raiders again. Oh, they're so in love. It's amazing. It's just that scene on the, like with the mirror and like they're like, oh, it's hot. Well, I'm just
no, but it's true because they have like really super good chemistry in that movie. And I mean, it's Harrison Ford, so I feel like it's hard at like Harrison Ford at the height. Most people, I think a brick would have chemistry with him. Yeah, we got to get to a ghost here. So, he's having this conversation with Claire, and a conversation that, I mean, it's been a little bit since we watched this movie in terms of like space to like from watching it to recording. So they're having this conversation, which is pretty like forgettable. I honestly don't remember what this conversation is about. It's that like unimportant to the plot.
Turkeys aren't being delivered or some
then they're interrupted, right? So these women come up and are like, the A&P isn't delivering turkeys, and Cross is trying to talk to Claire, and she's trying to deal with this situation so that like the homeless people can have turkeys on Christmas. And he finally drops the line, which I kind of feel like this is this movie's surplus population.
Yes.
Right? Where he's like, these people suck, meaning like her volunteers. Cut them loose and save yourself.
Yep.
Right.
Scrape them off.
Yeah, scrape them off. That's what it is. Thank you. Right.
Scrape them off, which is, I will say, as an updated version of the line for the 80s, pretty freaking accurate for the times.
Yeah, pretty good.
We don't care about these people. They're not us. Scrape them off. And that's what Reaganomics did. That is what the general attitude of the wealthy of that decade was. And this was 87, just before the crash, right before yeah, this is very much the mindset of the time. 86, when this would have been made, yeah, this is exactly where the zeitgeist is. This is everybody's philosophy. We're watching lifestyles of the rich and famous for the first time. Screw your neighbor, get rich doing it.
Absolutely. It's actually like it's a really appropriate way to approach this if you're making a modernized Christmas Carol in the 80s.
Yeah.
To just like really nail it right in the Reaganomics.
It doesn't. They don't matter. They don't matter.
Yeah.
From the AIDS epidemic that was going on at the time in the country to what again Reaganomics was doing to urban culture. It was.
Oh yeah, war on
scrape
drugs,
them off.
like all that crap.
They don't. No one matters besides yourself and yours, and it's. God dang.
Well, so we go back to the Scrooge set, which is like the set where they're filming this live Christmas Carol show, and the kind of schmaltzy Hollywood John Glover character is kind of taking over Frank's role at this point, and Frank is not thrilled with this power grab that's happening as he sends everybody out to lunch,
especially because he's a lovable dude.
Oh yeah,
he's so awesome. Like, he's such a great guy. Like, yeah. He's just, and he's funny. And when Frank throws it in his face that I'm the one who calls the breaks for lunch. Hey, Frank, you want me to call everybody else back? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's the one where he shows his hand just a little bit, like.
Right. Like, it is a little bit put on, that, like, calling everyone babe and, like, you know, that kind of 80s, 90s Hollywood glad-handing thing. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get into the generation differences in a little bit, but this is kind of another part of that.
This is like the boomers giving in to Gen X. Like, that's totally what's happening here.
John's maybe a little young to be playing, a little older to be playing this type of character, but this is Charlie Sheen and
Michael
Douglas in Wall Street. Like, this is like those generational clashes coming to a head.
100%. So this gives way to, I think this is my favorite place where the Scrooge and Scrooged worlds crossover.
I could see
where
that.
He's left alone in front of the Scrooge and Marley office on the set, and all the lights go out because they're like sending everyone out for their union lunch break, and it's just Frank Cross standing in front of the Scrooge and Marley office. And because you can't see the kind of like the lighting and wiring and all of like the filmmaking artifice going on, it's just that, and it looks like he's in A Christmas Carol for a second. It's very good.
Use what you got.
Absolutely.
Use what you got.
They do it really intentionally throughout, and I think it's one of the strengths of this movie is that constant crossover back to like classic Christmas Carol.
You could do a stage version of this.
It'd be interesting.
Like, set it in a TV studio. Like, kind of like how a certain director did My Favorite Year a couple years ago, right? Like, have it be like actually shot in like a studio setting with people acting like it's a live performance.
Yeah, totally.
And have like the ghosts interact with the performance as it's going on live. Like, you would have to change it a little bit, maybe shrink the timeline down a little.
Yeah,
but you could get there like that. Yeah. Ooh, let's do it. Let's get the rights. Get the rights.
Get the rights to Scrooge.
Cut that check.
So
I don't
now
know what that means. I don't know what that means. I don't know what cut the check
whatever means. It's fine.
Anthony Mackie, who's Captain America, said it, and I'm like, that's my Captain America, so yeah, I'll say it too.
There we go. Well, my Captain America is Carol Kane.
Carol Kane is punching Hitler in this scene, and Hitler's is being played by Bill Murray, and it is glorious. Let's get into this intro, okay?
Yeah, so Carol Kane, so there's like is it like a disco light kind of thing starts up on the set? Like
a disco ghost light?
Kind of, right?
Yeah.
It's like that thing where like if you hit a disco ball with
the spotlight,
light, it shoots the little lights everywhere.
All right, let's tell the backstory real quick. I was doing a production of Follies about 13 years ago, right? And we get to the number Mirror Mirror, and to create a mirror effect that would go across the theater, me and the other spot op had to put our spots at a disco ball, which shot the little disco lights are all around the theater. My gosh, that was like 13 years ago, John. Maybe 14 at this moment.
That's pretty wild.
That's some wild, wacky stuff right there, Mr. J. That is pretty bad.
I prefer not to think about the fact that we are both in our 30s and we met when we were teenagers.
Darn tootin' we were. Like, oh my gosh, we were teenagers. We've known each other in 3 decades.
I'm teaching kids now who are the same age that I was when I met you.
I am working with counselors who were the campers of the first generation of my campers. Like I'm 4 generations into this process.
Jeez.
It's insane.
Jeez. Wild.
We're old. Old.
Yeah.
Can we just be cast as the old men in the Muppet Show and just live our lives in peace now?
That's basically what we are.
Like that's oh gosh, what a wonderful retirement that would be. Just to be making fun of at one of the parks, dressed up as those guys. I don't even know their names. I should. Some Muppeteer fans are going to be like, "You don't know Wilbert and what's his name?" Like they're going to be mad at me.
Statler and Waldorf.
See, this is that guy. This is that guy.
Oh, man. Well, anyway, so, yeah, there's that disco ball thing that happens, and Carol Kane floats down from the ceiling dressed as Glinda the Good Witch. I mean, that's what this costume is, right?
Okay, so let's go through these for a second, okay? What do we get with the Ghost of Christmas Past?
Didn't we talk? He's like an old-fashioned cab driver. He's like that, right? It's
So what is this representing here? What is the Glinda Good Witch?
Show business?
The show business of television?
So if it's television and like film, right? Like, I feel like The Wizard of Oz is like a seminal piece of film, right? Of like fantasy film, right? It is that almost like Christmas Carol-esque in the way it's like she's taken into this fantasy world to like help her deal with things in the real world.
I had a similar thought with Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz being played on television is a big deal because when it first happened, it was in black and white. It was in black and white, and like then over the time it would be in color, and like it evolved. Your experience of watching Wizard of Oz evolved over the years. I definitely think the showbiz part is there. I definitely agree with that. I think I was just thinking about the kids show connection. She's very much like a PBS, like not syndicated kids show that you would find on or either a PBS or a UHF channel.
Sure.
And side note, she comes flying in. They mask the wires with one of the greatest and best tricks ever. Bubbles. Okay?
Yeah.
They use bubbles to mask the wires. You don't see her flying, and it's amazing. It's the same thing they did in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's just a great little practical effect trick. You can't do it all the time because how many situations can you write where someone's going to be floating on with bubbles around, right?
Right.
But
Unless
it's
like
wonderful
underwater.
to see a magic trick work. And she looks as realistically as flying as she can, but there's still the way she's flying that lets you know it's fake, which lets you know that it's television.
Yeah, it's interesting. They don't work too hard to hide the artifice because like the artifice is kind of part of it. Like Bill Murray's experiencing these things as like television stereotypes. So
and he's behind the scenes now, so he's seen the magic.
So this performance is great, like truly hysterical, but also really weird. And some fun facts about this behind the scenes. Carol Kane broke down crying on the set several times because it was really, she had a really hard time with the violence of the role. And
Really?
Bill Murray basically just said, hit me full force, like every time, including later when she hits him with the toaster, like all of that, she was actually hitting Bill Murray. And it apparently was like really stressful for her, which made me sad watching this because it's such like a bubbly, flouncy performance, but she's like really beating the crap out of him.
I will say this. Bill Murray comes from a generation of men who watched the Three Stooges.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's where this happens sometimes with like, no, really lay it in. Like really
hit me.
Really hit me because that's
feels like a weird movie. It feels like a weird movie to go like, I'm method for violence. You know what I mean?
Well, we had mentioned last time that he'd be coming off of Ghostbusters. If I'm not mistaken,
there was a break between Ghostbusters.
There was a little bit of a flop in between there. So I feel like he was in a raw place.
Yeah.
Like he was like, he needed to prove himself, and his career was going to go off in a lot of different directions after
and
this.
Working with like Richard Donner, like a renowned director too. I think that was part of the appeal, and then it was like a weird experience.
Right, and it was very much, I mean, it's this movie, like we talked about last time, it's all over the place, and Murray's performance is part of that. But this seems like the type of thing, like, he could have control over it.
Sure.
He could have control over her kicking the shit out of him. Sure. So he was like, no, I want it to be something that I'm on board with and I can agree. Like, yeah, this character should be beaten up at this point. If I could beat myself up, because he wanted to beat himself up for that performance. Yeah. He wanted to beat himself up for like going as over the top in the previous scene. Like this
is a deep level of psychoanalysis.
But if he could have smacked that guy around, he would have. So Carol, swing for the fences.
Yeah. Yeah, so she takes him to Grace's house.
That was in real time, people. That came to me all in real time. That was amazing. I was in the zone.
So this is our Cratchit house scene. They're looking in the window, and it's like Scroogeception because they're watching the Alistair Sim Christmas Carol at this moment, and it's the Tiny Tim.
Right.
Like Calvin, who is the Tiny Tim in this version, is watching Tiny Tim on the Alistair Sim version on TV.
It's awesome. It's great. And what did I say on that very first episode? This was the version that a whole generation grew up watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This was their Scrooge, and it's the one they show in this movie, which is about the television generation doing their own Scrooge story. And I didn't remember this part of it. I knew they watched something. I couldn't tell you which version it was, but
sure.
This is, again, going back with that theory.
It makes sense that it would be like Alistair Sim, which is, I think, like,
very
probably
version.
Like it's got to be in the top 5, right? Just in terms of like overall popularity.
It wasn't in my top 5 before this. I mean, how many versions have I seen? But I'll tell you what, to paraphrase somebody in the wrestling business, it's gone up without even trying because so many other dumb versions have come along, right? Like many bad versions of again. 100%. Albert is looking great. Finney is just sitting pretty now. Like we got to go back and review that one. Like we gotta
do like a redemptive retrospective on Scrooge.
Totally.
So, so we do find out some things. We find out that Calvin's father died. Right, his father was murdered, and he saw it happen. And he hasn't spoken since then. So our Tiny Tim, rather than it being like a physical ailment, he's dealing with like PTSD, right? Some trauma, and he hasn't spoken.
Think about the connection between the shotgun in the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Murder, seen on television. That did kill some. Did we get to that point?
Yeah, that was way back.
That was way
before,
back.
That was before Marley showed up.
That's right.
Or after Marley showed up.
But
I don't know. One of the two.
But like, it actually did kill someone, right?
Yeah.
And what he witnessed though was real life. And is there something being said here about that? Like real life, it matters.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think because you have Cross using murder as like a titillation, like using that idea of these roving street gangs and the violence of that decade to like hook people in and get them interested.
Right.
Right. Meanwhile, we see this kid who's like facing the very, very real trauma of losing a parent to violence. Like, I don't think it's not intentional.
No, it's definitely intentional. I just think it's a wonderful setup here, and I also
like that they don't draw attention to it. That's kind of left for you to consider. Like,
right. It's if you really want to start. And again, the script is solid on this.
Yeah, a lesser script would have had Guy Pearce come in and be like explaining the whole thing in monologue,
and then Bobcat's wife shows up at his place, and
yeah.
No, we buried it, John. We buried it. Okay?
I think it would have been just Bobcat, right? Like, imagine that, right? Because he'd come in and be like,
I didn't have a visual.
All right, Mr. Scrooge, if this is what you want, this belt's kind of tight.
That was both a Bobcat impersonation and my response. I didn't have a visual before, John. I didn't have a visual. It was a character that we never see. And then you threw a visual onto it. And now I got built. Never clean. I'm never clean.
So we don't like so this scene really just serves, I mean, we've already seen Grace's family. I feel like the scene doesn't really introduce us to anything new necessarily, but it does kind of explain that detail about Calvin, and then we're kind of whooshed away, or drop kicked, I guess, in this situation, to his brother's like beatnik Christmas party that he's having with all his hip young Gen X friends.
Yeah, it's yeah, man, they're just gonna be sitting around, listening to some Billy Joel and just having a really good time. And it's and they'll listen to Good Night Saigon, and like it'll be great, like.
And 20 years from now, they'll be like the world's most boring parents.
Oh God, yeah, grandparents are the worst. Oh my gosh, you know it. Like they are just. Always to the smart device. Always.
Anyway.
Cut that part.
So.
Cut that part.
There's this, mix up with the Christmas gifts. So I know we had earlier established that Bill Murray was going to give his brother like a towel instead of a VCR because those were his two Christmas gift options.
Because he's a scumbag.
Yeah, he's scummy, but his and doesn't feel like his brother adds value to his life because that's kind of his thing, right? It's like he was basing the gifts on people's Nielsen ratings. Like, was their show doing well? Were they being well reviewed? Were like people watching? If so, they get a VCR. So and I don't think his brother works there at the station, right?
No, it's his opinion of his brother that he's thinking of
right.
at that moment. He thinks his brother's a dunce because his brother's it's at Christmas. His brother, in his mind, is his worst self because he's a dreamer and a hoper, not a realist like Mr. Cross. Right.
So, Bill Murray sees that he got a VCR instead of a towel, and he's like, I'm gonna fire Grace and blah 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 blah. They do the party game here. It's charades, which I thought was like a clever, because that definitely like 100% would have been what the party game would be in the late 80s, early 90s.
Charades?
Sure, I've seen Frasier.
It's Trivial Pursuit.
Weren't they? Well, no, don't they also play charades? Am I making this up? Why did I write charades down?
Okay, so here's what we're going to do, friends. We're flying here, so I am 95%.
No, you're totally
positive.
Right that it's Trivial Pursuit because it's the question about Gilligan's Island.
Right, and how do you do SSS?
Never mind. I just wrote down the note charades and didn't even think about it. I probably even meant Trivial Pursuit at the time. Whatever.
No, this is all gold, John.
And also,
folks,
Trivial Pursuit would have
up.
also been very late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, God, yeah. Because it's the television generation. They grew up with so much information being thrown in their face. And that's the thing, that they're like... And they had game shows. Mm-hmm. So they want... I mean, look, board games have been around. I'm sure there had been some trivia game before in the past.
But Trivial Pursuit's like the granddaddy of all that. Like, it's a reference everyone would get.
Right.
So yeah, and so like Bill Murray's like, I know that it's the SS Minnow. What are you doing? Because they like the question his brother can't answer is, is, what is the name of the ship from Gilligan's Island or whatever. But I want to, move past that because the scene is pretty quick. My absolute favorite line in this entire movie comes up next because Carol Kane drop kicks him down some stairs and then he ends up in a sewer and she is gone. And his line is, what is this place? Trump Tower? Which is such a funny line in the late 80s. So good. God, that's like a line that ages like a fine Bordeaux. Just chef's kiss.
Yep, and it's appropriate. It's always going to be timely now.
Who would have thought that joke would get 100 times funnier with just 40 years or I guess 32 years to percolate?
Yeah, I mean, it's two things. It's one thing is it makes the joke now timeless. We will never forget that president.
Well, not to bring the party down, but Herman's dead. The homeless guy that we mentioned before. In what is, I would say, in a sequence that has been pretty funny and a little bit difficult to watch because it's literally Carol Kane just beating the crap out of Bill Murray as you're trying to focus on things. And then he's alone in this sewer and this guy is sitting up, frozen to death, his eyes open. It's very upsetting.
He's in the sewer dealing with something that he could have changed. He's got to deal with his shit. He's in. I mean, right? Like, that's what we're doing here, right? We're talking about, and we're putting him in the worst. This is hell. This is hell. And it is on Earth.
Interesting that this is not I think it's really interesting that it's not a Christmas future vision. This is explicitly part of Christmas present because it's something he can do right now.
This is... I feel like this whole sequence is happening actually in real time.
No, because it's Christmas.
So she goes back...
It's Christmas night, and they all just went to lunch before Carol Kane shows up.
No. So, with a little bit of flexibility here, but you got to go with me on this, okay? So, where do we start off? We start off with the Cratchit family, right?
Yeah.
We're there, and that is when she's on. And she mentions this. She's on break in between the rehearsal. They had a break for food, and then she's heading back to the studio that night. So that's happening there. Then, remember, this is all Christmas Eve present. This is not Christmas Day.
Right.
So that's a big distinction between the other versions. So then we go to his brother's house, which is having a dinner and a meal before the live broadcast. And we know the live broadcast is coming later because, spoilers, when we see him watching it, the VCR is underneath the TV.
Oh, you are right.
And then this is also happening within relative real time of this. So that when he comes out of it, he's already dead. And we'll know that he's dead later on. This is not changeable. This is what has happened. This is happening currently and it could have been prevented.
Yeah.
In a 1986 America. But we created hell on earth, and that's where this poor bastard died.
Wow, Jimmy. You thought you weren't going to remember this. Look,
I'm throwing rocks tonight.
Yeah. Nothing but net. Well,
so you went from bowling to basketball.
I'm not a sports dude, so I just mix all of those metaphors.
It's gotta be.
Speaking of sports metaphors, we actually have to take a 7th inning stretch and pay our clerk. So we're going to go to a quick ad break right here. And when we come back, we will round these bases and bring it home.
If I stopped you half a crown for it, you'd think yourself ill-used, wouldn't you? But you don't think me ill-used if I pay a day's wages for no work, do you? It is only once a year, sir. It's a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. Yes,
We are back.
So baseball is a game played in a park, John, okay? Where a bunch of guys get dressed up in uniforms, including the guy who helps run the team, but isn't the only guy that runs the team. But he gets dressed up in a uniform, but he's not going to play. They don't do that in football. I kind of wish they did it in football, too.
For the sake of argument, okay, here I'm going to betray my like complete. I live in Philadelphia, and my point of reference is going to be Andy Reid.
Oh God!
I mean,
that's about 3 coaches back, at least,
right? Well, we don't have Peterson anymore, do we?
No, Doug did a dumb thing. I wasn't even watching that day, but I heard it. I heard it from the echoes of the stadium. I was like, "You did that?
Come on, man!
You dumbass!
What a fall from grace!"
He was on the ways out. He was on the ways out, and got us a Super Bowl. Nick Foles, Carson Wentz. I still have his jersey. I'm always gonna wear it with pride because if it wasn't for that guy we got there, and look, I'm a Central Jersey Phillies fan, so I know. I get it. I'm aware of it. I'm trying to help. It's not going well. Please be kind.
Luckily most of our audience probably is just people we know, so everyone will get all of those references.
Oh, they're all Eagles fans, and they're all going to come after me and hate me now. So don't play into the stereotype, people. Come on now. Just because we threw snowballs at Santa one time, you throw snowballs at Santa, you're marked for life.
It's a point of pride. I was going to say if they put Andy Reid in an Eagles uniform, they would just try to they would try to ticket him when he came in. Oh, are you talking about with like the shoulder pads? It would just be like his little. I'm
talking about with shoulder pads and everything. He would just be like his little bristly mustache
sticking out over the collar. Anyway, Let's
bash out Andy Reid some more. Most winning coach in Eagles history. I think he still owns that record. And never got the Super Bowl, but almost got there like 4 times. Got there once. Go Andy Reid. Welcome to this podcast. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Well. So after Herman freezes to death in the sewer, and we didn't talk about this before the ad break, but I think it's interesting that like in this moment, Bill Murray's like, "Why didn't you go to Claire? Like she could have helped you." And his reaction is not one of like sorrow, at least outwardly. He's angry at Herman. Like he's trying to blame Herman for making this bad decision that he knows is kind of like something he could have done something about.
Well, it's twofold. It's clearly what you're saying there, but he's also saying it to himself.
Yeah. I think this is Bill Murray's. I want to say this. I'm going to say it. This is his best scene in this movie.
Disagree, but
this is at least. I'll say this is my favorite scene in the movie because I think it's the one moment.
It's good. Yeah. It's top 5, no doubt. Top 5, no doubt. But it is his most intense. And there's still something else. Here's the thing
about it though. It's a really good scene, and he really lets it go, and like really kind of gets unhinged. And if he had been more restrained in the rest of the movie, it would have hit way harder than it does. It already hits pretty hard because it's filmed really well. You get these like close-ups on Herman's like dead frozen face with this kind of like passive look that is really chilling as Bill Murray's yelling at him. But I feel like they kind of like shot their load early on, and then they're like, okay, well now what do we do?
We have turned by this point though in the movie into I guess the victory road, because with few exceptions, everything is pretty much gold from here on out. Like as soon as we get to Carol, we are go for gold because it's all great stuff. Maybe again a few things here and there that haven't aged perfectly, a few insensitive jokes here and there. Hey, it happens to the best of art from the past, right? It's the freaking 80s. So like but those things aside, this is all solid effort from especially this is where it's like goes into next gear.
Yeah, so he flashes back to the Scrooge set. He's looking much more disheveled. He kind of like runs onto the set, right? And he runs towards the elevator because he's trying to go up to his office. And the doors open, and the Ghost of Christmas Future is there, like classic skull face, the works, glowing red eyes. And he like panics, but it's not the real Ghost of Christmas Future. It's like a fake out. It's actually the actor in the show.
And he commits to it. Like, he's like, this is it. Like, I'm down to go. And it's a great joke. It's an earned joke too. It has the whole movie. They have flirted with the fact that they are on the set of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
You know, they've done little bits here and there that have connected with it, obvious ones, but like this is the earned big joke of that, which is a two-prong attack, and it's coming back a little bit later on. We'll get to that. It's awesome. It's well done here, and
I really like when he, like, the ghost kind of moves away. Like, I feel like does Bryce Cummings, does the John Glover character call the guy away? Like, because Bill Murray's freaking out? He's
like, oh God, like, I want him to break, but I don't want him to break that much that it destroys the show. And like, he's going to scare this guy before he's got to go on TV. Jim Henson, get over here. Okay. We're paying you by the hour. All right.
So I love
it. Could have been, I mean, I don't know. I didn't look up who were doing the puppeteering work on this, but this could have been Henson's work here.
Yeah, I guess it's possible. It doesn't really do much.
No, well,
no, yeah, the thing later on. So there's a really funny line before Bill Murray gets on the elevator where he's like, "That guy's great. He's gonna be a big star." He's like, he did a really great job. So he goes back up to his office, and the broadcast is starting. They're actually doing the show, and he pours himself a drink, and he opens the Christmas gift that his brother sent him. And inside, it is a picture frame with a picture of the two of them as kids, which is like a really touching, nice moment, kind of calling back to them.
Which we knew was coming because in the previous scene, Carole King covers up Bill Murray's ears and won't let him know the present, right? And we know that. And then he gives a little speech about his brother, and the same speech we kind of got earlier on from Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, right? We get that rah-rah brother scene. And that's when he says he can keep the VHS player, whatever, I could write it off on my taxes because he's a scumbag still. But when he opens the present, that's the first time that something that wasn't supernatural breaks him. Everything else has been vision or something that has been manipulated by the spirits. That was an act on this earth. That was the brother made this wooden frame and gave this picture of the two of them to his brother. And he breaks at that point. Like, he's getting drunk, like he is out of it, and he has a full-on breakdown right at that
beat. It's really good. So meanwhile, there's that wall of TVs behind him, right? From the opening scene. And this is the first time I ever saw this movie. I caught it on TV, like on TBS or something around Christmas time, and it was this scene. And I was like, oh, this is what Scrooged is? This is a lot. Because the scene is playing like this kind of non-traditional version of the scene where Scrooge is going to be met by the Ghost of Christmas Future, and the actor on the screen is like, it's the thing that all men fear. So like they really, really tell you it's death right up front.
And Hackett is doing his best, like, and where Scrooge in the novella in this live performance is right now too, because it's like, I have, you've taught me these lessons, and I'm gonna change. But now here come, drop the hammer down. Yeah. Here's the future. And it's what's happening on screen, though, is we're seeing the live broadcast, right? On all these different monitors. So there's like, what is it? A 4x4 is what we think it is? Or 5x5? Like some sort of grid like that. And each individual TV is just the individual broadcast. Then panning into the shot that spreads as if it's one image across all the monitors is the ghost of Christmas
Well, and
future.
what's interesting, right? So I feel like there's 3 versions of this, because there's the version he runs into in the elevator, which is obviously a cheap costume. And then there's this version, which looks like that cheap costume, but like much better designed. It's like this, it's the same thing, you can tell, but it's designed to look more realistic, more terrifying, more malignant, right? And then this big
Right.
arm like reaches out of the bank of TVs towards Bill Murray, like huge arm that could like grab him and pick him up. And
Creepy as hell as
Yeah,
a child.
it's scary.
Oh my god. It is terrifying.
and he doesn't know this.
I
Like
would
he's
hide.
not seeing it because he's focused on this thing, his brother's.
He's
Yeah.
out of it, man. He has come to the realization that what his life is and what it does to people. And like any Scrooge at that moment, when getting the news about Tiny Tim or seeing the plight of the world and seeing what Christmas can do to people and what he has done to people, right? He's just on the break. And then just when we're about to begin our Ghost of Christmas future sequence, when the ghost is reaching out, something changes.
Yeah. So Bobcat Goldthwait goes postal.
Cratchit's got a gun! Cratchit's got a gun!
So he busts in. Does he say, "Honey, I'm home"? I'm pretty sure he does.
He said, does he say Merry
No,
Christmas?
I think he says, "Honey, I'm home." It's either that or "Here's Johnny," but I'm pretty sure it's "Honey, I'm home."
No, he doesn't say Here's Johnny. He does look
Yeah,
horrible.
he's really disheveled. He's clearly drunk. He's got a shotgun, and he's coming in to
He's at
kill
his
Cross.
wits. And
He's had one bad day.
Freaking one bad day. He's the Joker. He is the Joker. And look, we saw how timid Bobcat was in the first scene. You know how much this man's been bottling up inside? How much backed up aggression this guy's been wanting to let loose? And what is he wielding? What is he wielding in his hands, John? A shotgun. The thing he wanted cut out of the commercial.
Jimmy,
He's got
God,
the
that's beautiful.
He's got the shotgun in his hand. He's been driven to the thing he was protesting against, and he's a bad or great shot, depending on how you want to
Sure.
interpret it. And he's just shooting for the fences here. And Murray, who again was this close to having a full-on either epiphany or a breakdown or something over that photo and was going to be taken to the future, right? Not happening.
Well, Bill Murray dives into an elevator to escape.
After Bobcat starts singing Santa Claus is coming to town in the most terrifying manner ever, and it's glorious.
Really
I want him to play a supervillain in the worst way. He is right now. At this moment, he is a full-on supervillain in this movie, and it's amazing.
Yeah, he'd be a good Doc Ock. I mean, I know they're just bringing Alfred Molina back.
He'd be great in anything. Bobcat is a true artist. If you ever look into his work, he does a lot of documentary stuff. Like this guy, he is the real deal. And when he commits to a project, he's all in, and he is all in on this.
Yeah, I would say that he is nailing it in every scene in a way that Bill Murray is not.
No, his batting average is stellar.
Yeah.
He's having an MVP season. Like he is just on fire this movie. I think the only person that could maybe rival him for consistency would be Bill Murray's assistant,
Alfred Woodard,
like the
Grace Cooley. Yeah.
Yes, like
her performance is
owning...
much more subdued than Bobcat's, obviously. So the real ghost of Christmas Future is here, and it's not the ghost that he saw downstairs, and it's not the ghost that he saw on the TV screen. It's similar. It's got like the robe, right? The tattered robe and stuff, which looks very cool. But its face is like a broken TV screen, like a CRT monitor, which is very good.
Great. Very good choice. On many different levels. Like, we've had real people up to this point. Are we becoming television?
Yeah.
Obviously. Like, that's there. It's that... Just, of course, what it represents for this generation and for Bill Murray's character of their generation, right, as we've been going over. And on top of that, it's just an amazing visual. And how to get away
It's a
with
very cool take. It's probably the coolest one we've seen.
Yeah, it might be the coolest one by the end of this. Honestly, I mean, there might be one that could take it down, but it's the closest to what Dickens intended with a modern twist.
And we haven't even talked about what's going on under the robe, because at first Bill Murray thinks this is the guy from downstairs, right? And he's like, what are you doing here? You should be at the broadcast. And then he looks under the robe, and there's like these little kind of labyrinth-esque howling souls underneath.
It's beautiful. And Bill Murray has to do a double take, which is great. We don't see it again because we don't need to see it again. We just hear the sound effects.
The double take is very funny, and I'm glad that we don't see it. It's just all Bill Murray. At it.
I've been crapping on Bill Murray from earlier scenes. Got to give the man his due. That's a great paced comedic moment there. Like just the double take is amazing.
So in tradition with a lot of our Ghosts of Christmas Future, this moves at a pretty brisk clip. I feel like we rarely get a Ghost of Christmas Future that's not like 10 minutes max.
But here's the thing that's going on with this version. He's changing the channels.
Yeah.
He's changing the channels quickly because he's got no time for this BS. He's got to keep changing channels. And the elevator of a television studio is the clicker of Bill Murray's future. And it is amazing to see that because, you know, the old saying, which has become true with TikToks and things like that, sitcoms are going to be 30 seconds in the future. In a way, they kind of are now with all these, different types of platforms. So, this is the future of entertainment. No time, no fat, no subtlety. This future is...
It's very, it's like Britney, right?
Hyper-realized camp on adrenaline. This is... Some of this is distant future. 20, 30 years maybe, but some of it is 5 years, and we get this very weird interpretation of the future, very different art style. This is where the Burton comes to play. This is very Burton.
So the first thing we see is Calvin, right, our Tiny Tim, and he's in a mental ward, right? He's which feels extreme for a kid dealing with PTSD, but I guess it's an extreme idea.
I hate to say this, but we don't know the rest of the story there. We don't know what either kids at school did to him or how something else could have happened, right? And just he was in a situation where he didn't know how to react. I don't want to make assumptions, but we don't know the story. We just know the result. And the result is that this poor kid is now in this institution, and kind of like in the Guy Pearce version, after his mom leaves and he's in that padded room by himself, which is horrifying.
Yeah, it's really rough.
And
like Jimmy said, it's hyper stylized, so it's not a realistic depiction. It's very stark and creepy and Dutch angle-y.
Batman Returns.
I was just gonna say this whole sequence feels like if Tim Burton had kept making Batman movies, this is what they would have ended up looking like.
Like how in Batman Forever they went to Arkham, right? For the ending of the movie, and originally it was in the beginning of the movie with Two-Face escaping. This is kind of what that Arkham looks like. A little bit. Maybe not as extreme with the neon coloring. But going back to the little boy, our Tiny Tim, not so much. He's a teenager here, and he's upset, and he's mad. He's upset about his life, where he's at. And like in the Guy Pearce version, he can see Bill Murray. He can see him, and he's mad, and he stares Murray down, and Murray's like, "Okay, all right," and it's a good turn. He's like, "All right, no, that's not."
He's like, "I know people at what does he say, NYU or something like that." He's like, "Oh, we can fix this."
But it builds though. It builds. He's like, "Okay, no, I got this. I got this guy at the hospital. He's gonna put him together. I've known him for years. He owes me a favor. I got him out of jail for coke one time. Don't worry about it. Look, I'm on this.
He's got it."
And when he builds I'm all over this, or I'm on top of this. It's that's when he really I have to fix this now. And
yeah. So then we get another channel change, and it's Claire, who has become Cruella de Vil, like you said. I mean, that's what it is. Penguin's mom.
Glenn Close in the 95, 96 movies. Watch the F out. Oh my God. She's amazing here with her little posse of like,
yeah. So she's like sitting. It's weird,
horrible.
Right? Because she's in these like kind of like anachronistic aristocrat clothes, and she's
ladies.
Yeah, and she's sitting with these other like upper classy women in like some kind of a weird gazebo. It's not super clear if it's outdoors or indoors. This is a really hard visual aesthetic to describe. Like you have to kind of see it.
It's abstract. It's abstract because what it's doing is it's breaking down the future past what you would like put it as some actual time period, right? It's the bare minimum to get across what has changed in the future. In this future, she has gone from being a saint to being a sinner. She has taken Lumpy's look on life to heart, scrape them off, she says in a second there, because we see some... Okay, maybe the funniest visual of the movie, which is unintentionally funny, but it's really funny because they are not anachronistic at all. They're straight out of the novella Street Urchins, banging on the glass of this gazebo, this glass, and she says, "Get rid of them," to the waiter, and then they're like, "Come on, they're just children. It's Christmas. Don't talk to me. I spent years on these little brats. Scrape them off."
Yeah, they're like Newsies or something. So
Christian Bale was in this.
So
you've been old enough.
So we get that, and then Bill Murray's like, "No, I'll talk to her. Like, we'll figure this out. That's not like whatever." And then we, of course,
no. It's a much more solid line than that, though. He turns to the ghost. He says it directly to the ghost. He goes, "That was a rotten thing to say." Like, he's like, "I'm rotten, and I said that, and that was wrong, and I'm taking complete ownership of it."
Yeah, 100%. And then we're at his funeral, right? So the casket's there. There's like the little fire behind it because they're going to cremate his body. His brother and his brother's wife are there. And at first, it's just his brother's wife, right? Who we saw before, and he thinks that his brother is going to die.
And I think that's because he wouldn't expect her at his funeral.
Right.
Oh, I'm seeing her? Oh, that means...
Well, and he doesn't see his brother, right?
Because
like the brother walks in with the priests,
It's a two-prong indication. Like, that's what he jumps to. And he's like, okay, I've got him. And he immediately starts to be like, I need to make amends with my brother. I got to, as soon as I get back, I got to talk to him. Why'd this have to happen? Oh, there he is, James. And he starts cheering out to James as James walks into the casket.
So this, I mean, we've seen several versions now of like, not just Scrooge at the grave, but like Scrooge imperiled, like thrown into the grave or falling into hell or whatever. And I feel like this one is the most terrifying version we've seen because, I mean, even more than the Disney one with him like trying to climb out of the portal to hell in the children's movie, like the 8 and up Disney version.
All right, so let's go through it because I think that's the only way to really do it justice. He sees his brother's James. He's like, so wait a minute, whose casket is that? Why are they here? And he goes up to it, and he sees his name on it. Right? And he goes, so what is this point? That I'm dead? Why would you show me this if I'm dead? Well, I can't do anything if I'm dead. And they start to wheel it in to hell, basically.
I mean,
they're about to cremate him.
Yeah.
And and he's trying to drag it away and stop it. And as he's doing so, we jump cut immediately inside of the casket, right? Inside of it. And he's in there kicking and flailing, trying to escape as the flames engulf the casket and start nipping at Bill Murray's actual legs.
It's like really intense.
And it's cut after cut after cut, and you don't have a second to breathe, and it just keeps going and going and going until eventually, as it happens with all scenes, he does escape.
So he escapes. He wakes up in the elevator, right? and the elevator doors open, and he's like super excited, and he's alive, and it's a wonderful day. And then Elliot Loudermilk is pointing a shotgun into his nose.
It's a pretty, because he's banging against the elevator doors like the coffin, right? So like he bursts through like that, like a superhero. And it's a wonderful Christmas morning. I mean, it's Christmas Eve here, but like it's a wonderful like Scrooge moment that is immediately cut off by a shotgun to the face. But Cross is so changed that he has no fear of it and just immediately tries to start making amends.
So he awesome. Like takes the gun, gives him rehires him, gives him twice his salary and a promotion.
Blows bubbles on his tummy.
He does blow bubbles on his tummy.
That's his new thing. He's just going to be doing it to everybody. So hope we're all cool with that, because that guy's going to be doing it.
It was a little uncomfortable, but it's like...
I mean, the intention, the intention is that he's just going to be a goof. And
uncomfortable from a 2021 perspective. Like, let me point it out that way. 100%. I watch it now and I'm like, that would not fly if this movie was released today. That would be too much.
20 minutes later, So he is going nuts in this elevator hallway, right? And he grabs Bobcat by the arms, and they're spinning around, and and he's like, I'm gonna raise your salary. I'm gonna do this for you. I'm doing that for you. You had a new office. You like my office? No, I don't. And it's good stuff. It's good materials. And then he throws him in the elevator, takes the shotgun, and says, "We're going to have some fun."
Yeah.
Kind of got nervous there for a minute.
Yeah, so basically he enlists him to like take over the control booth of this TV station at gunpoint.
Yeah, that has not.
Yeah, no. A bunch of the stuff coming up here hasn't. So he basically, what happens, and I don't have a ton of notes on this because it's just there's a lot that goes on here, but it's mostly just Bill Murray monologuing. Bill Murray interrupts the conclusion of the Scrooge thing, and it's funny because like, as they've done many times, Bill Murray is having this like his kind of reborn moment, and then you see Buddy Hackett do the like it's Christmas morning thing out the window. So there's like that mirroring going on.
And the way and Buddy is up in the window for the what day is it scene, and he flicks down the coin, and they've got this intentionally, no pun intended here, money shot of money. Right? Like they are just glorifying money in this shot, this coin. It's not that, look at the money! And as the money comes down and is going to enter the kid on the street's hand, Bill Murray snatches it out of the air and says, "Stop looking at that," with that action. And this is the 80s. Greed is good. We were just glorifying money. Stop. I'm about to try to tell you something.
So what he ends up doing is he's got Bobcat Goldthwait holding everyone hostage and telling them where to point the cameras.
He's got the new hotshot LA producer tied up in there. Which is a funny line is, he's nuts. He's screwed, and then Bobcat bursts in. He's finished or something like that. And then he's tied up, and then Murray, the phone rings, and it's the head of the network who wanted to have more animals in television programming so that pets would watch TV, because you gotta have mice in a Christmas Carol. How can you have a Christmas Carol with? I'm done with it.
That's the Robert Mitchum character,
right? And so he's calling to get him pulled off the air, but Bobcat's holding the whole thing together. He makes a gay joke. It's lame. He makes one about the new producer being attracted to the head of the network, and what's the actor's name who played John?
Which the Hollywood guy? Yeah, John Glover. Yeah,
John Glover. Yeah, I just want to get that right. John Glover is gay, So like for him to have to sit through that and like have that like that sucks knowing that, and like knowing that probably had to suck for him. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he thought it was funny. People are is a different time. People took jokes differently, but I think it probably wasn't. I don't feel comfortable.
It's one of like a number of things that kind of ages poorly here. So then there's this moment where Bill Murray, like, he's kind of extolling the virtues of like grabbing your life and like living it and being with people, and then he like kind of sort of forces a kiss on one of these like skimpily clad dancers.
Well, backing up to that moment, because there's a lot to unpack here, friends. What he's doing is he's calling out how crappy it is to do a live production of Scrooge on television on Christmas Eve. Like, this isn't December 17th, December 20th, 23rd even. This is Christmas Eve.
And he's been banking on people watching TV on Christmas Eve. It's like the whole network is banking on it.
What type of scumbag would do this? And one of the cameramen, which I'm sure Bill Murray must have felt that this is what the cameramen from Saturday Night Live wanted to say to him. Like, only you, Cross. And it's like he wants to punch him, but like he can't because he's got to be like, you know, he's feeling it right now. He's feeling the spirit, and he's just like, he's building up the holiday, and he's just getting everybody in the spirit kind of randomly. And then he eyes her or she eyes him, and he then plays up the mistletoe thing, and it's lame. And he says that was good, but it could have been great. And that leads into him talking to the camera to someone.
Yeah, so he talks to Claire on the camera. He talks about his brother, and he like shows a picture of his brother. You know, and he's slowly kind of winning over like all the people that are watching that thought he was nuts, because what he says is really like heartfelt. Well,
Claire hears his plea like it's not too late, right? And it's not just that it's not too late at night. It's not too late in life.
Yeah, not too late for us.
Right. And she rushes outside and gets a ride with the Ghost of Christmas Past in the taxi. And she's, can you get me to the blah, blah, blah station? I think it's IBC or whatever it is. And he goes, which floor? You know?
Yeah.
Which is great. And Bill Murray is talking about the holiday. And what's really happening here, John, is a boomer's plea for his generation's humanity. It's, where are we at? We're all different ages, maybe, but we're all we're all the same generation. And we all have these jobs. We're someplace different from where we said we were going to be. And we're the generation that watched television, and we've sold out, you know, and he's pleading with his generation to find the best of humanity. That the holidays, we were led to believe something as a generation, and we were lied to. At least that's how we believed it, right? We received it. You know, they grew up in the 50s and 60s, then Kennedy gets killed, and then Vietnam and Nixon. Everything's a lie. Scrape them off. And they're living in the generation of greed. And he says, no, the holidays aren't fake. They're not it's not a fraud. It's not just one day a year. If you commit to it and you hold it in your heart, you'll get greedy for it. And what he's talking about is you'll get greedy on that feeling, that undescribable feeling of joy from doing a good deed, you know, for purely the right reasons. That is there, and it's a great feeling, and you'll get greedy for it, and you'll do it, and you'll make a sandwich, you'll help out a friend who's in need, you'll talk to people who are alone, you'll do it. I'm basically doing the monologue.
It's very close, actually.
And he's like, and it's a great feeling, and he's crying when he's describing how he's feeling. And he hasn't felt this way in a long time. And I would say almost never, except for the few moments he had with Claire and maybe with his brother James and his mom. And he's now connected back with those memories and those people. And he talks to his brother, going back a second. he admits to his brother that he wouldn't give him the towel. He was going to give him the towel, not the VHS player. He kind of like he shows his ass that he's the worst beforehand, and now he's like, see, I'm admitting this on global television that I'm an asshole. We as a generation need to admit that we were kind of assholes, and we need to do something about it and change our life around. And that's why I think it connects with a lot of people of a lot of different generations.
Wow. Yeah. And then Calvin, who is there watching the broadcast, comes up and says, "God bless us, everyone." The first time he's spoken in 5 years.
Well, he first comes up and he like does like a little tug on Bill Murray's coat after Claire comes in, and they kiss on Claire, the whole world, Claire. Yeah. Great joke. And Tiny Tim comes in, Calvin, and he tugs on and Bill Murray's jacket, and he's wearing one of the dancers' hats, which has the mistletoe on it, which is kind of cute for the Claire kiss. And he looks down and goes, "Something I forgot, little man?" And then he just says in the tiniest of voices, but so innocent and pure, "God bless us, everyone." And it's more like, "God bless us, everyone." And Bill Murray picks him up. He picks up Tiny Tim. He does something that most of these Scrooges don't do. And he just kind of gives him this hug, and Mom's right there, so it's not awkward. And it's this beautiful tableau, this wonderful visual. And I'm just, yes! Yeah. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it ends on a really good note. And then like Bill Murray does like a
well, everyone starts singing.
What do they sing? It's "Put a Little Love in Your Heart."
Put a little love in your heart. And the world will be a better place. And everyone's singing, and the world will be a better place. The people in the control room are singing. The censor is singing as she molests John Glover. The freaking ghosts on the side are all singing. Even the guy that was homeless that died in the sewer hell, he's there now, and he's an angel because he died, but he's being taken care of. Freaking the old television executive, I don't know if he got his wings, but he's going to make the 18th hole. All right? 18's great. 19 holes too many. And so
refer back to my lack of sports knowledge.
But like everybody's singing it and everybody's feeling it, and then Bill Murray slowly pans in onto the camera and he starts waving to it and goes, "Feed me, Seymour, feed me." And it's so wonderful.
He like Ferris Bueller's it, where he's just like breaking character and just talking to the audience in the theater directly.
And it's 87 that this comes out. It's 86 when they were probably filming it. So that means that Little Shop was only like a year old from production. So it was in his brain. He had just done the dentist scene from that. Side note, if you haven't seen Little Shop of Horrors,
he was
stop
in that.
listening. Oh, he's got one of the best cameos ever. He's doing the Jack Nicholson part from the original movie. The weird patient. And it's maybe the most Bill Murray thing ever. It's like all range. Like if you do like silly off the walls Bill Murray, that's the best version of Bill Murray in that scene. If you like just weird subversive Bill Murray, that's in there too.
Yeah, totally.
But this little "Feed Me Seymour" line, "Feed me," is amazing. And then he just kind of does this like little improv game with the audience that is not there watching this movie anymore, but in theaters would have been watching. He's like, "Let's hear everybody singing," you know? And it's kind of, there's some jokes in there like, you know, let's have all the men sing. Oh, the real men, you know? And like, that doesn't age well. But he does this. He's holding court still. And then we cut to James, his brother, and he goes, "There's my brother, the king of Christmas." And then we fade to black with another like really cool like 80s Christmas song or something that sounds like it.
Sure.
It might have been "Put a Little Love in Your Heart," but just a different recording.
It might have been,
good. It's a great
and that finale. Is Scrooged.
Yeah. I'm going to say this is a silly thing to say, but this is really the tale of two movies. Especially in my life.
Do you want to say this here, or do you want to say it during your future or past?
Let's save it for future.
Well, in that case, Jim, I have some questions for you. What is going to get your Christmas turkey for this movie?
That's a tough call. I mean, I could make a list here of things that you won't name, or because you'll name something else. There's so many options, right? Like, so I don't want to step on something, but I could go through a lot of different things here. But I think, God, so tough. I've got to go with the Ghost of Christmas Future.
Yeah.
It's the most solid sequence of the movie. It's, besides maybe the speech at the end, it's his best performance in the movie. You really get that he wants to change in that moment. You get everything that the novella is trying to say in that sequence is communicated here. And that includes the office scene. That includes the shotgun chase. Like, that whole little sequence there is amazing. And that, for everything it does and the pacing of it too, like, it is quick, but everything lands. Like, everything just has enough time to breathe. And again, going back to how I used to watch this on network television, this was a solid commercial to commercial chunk of the movie, right? Like, this was like, you're going to watch this whole scene, commercial break, go to the bathroom. Maybe you'll see the rest of the movie. Maybe you won't. This was, and I think that's a part of the reason why my brain, like, this is my favorite thing of the movie. It's what I remember the most. It's visually interesting. And again, Bill Murray, solid performance. John, what gets your Christmas turkey?
So my Christmas turkey, I've already kind of teased it, but it's that scene in the sewer where he finds the body. So I like it for a couple of reasons, but the biggest one is it does this thing that I really, really love anytime I see performance of any kind, where the things an actor is doing and the things that they are saying in a vacuum are communicating one thing, but because there is context and because of the way the director chooses to focus the camera and because of like the subtle ways that the actor has delivered their performance up until that point, it communicates another thing. So what Bill Murray is saying to this body is like, you jerk, you idiot. Like, why did you do this? You could have gone back to her, whatever, to this dead body. And on the surface, he's just still being a loud, obnoxious jerk. But for whatever reason, there's this subtle difference where he's like saying this to this dead body, but you can tell what he's really doing is saying it to himself. And I think it's just a moment of like real sharp filmmaking, a really great performance from Bill Murray, the music, the setting, even like the expression on the dead guy's face are so like well put together in a movie that I think doesn't always manage to stick the landing in that way. So that is going to get my Christmas turkey.
In the sewer that is in the shadow of Trump Tower.
Yeah.
Damn. Like,
I don't know if it is in front of Trump Tower or if it's just he's making a joke because it's a sewer and he's comparing Trump Tower to a sewer. Because,
I don't care. It makes sense in my brain. My own game.
Well, speaking of Trump Tower, what's going to get your lump of coal for this film?
My lump of coal is going to go to the homeless shelter scene.
Okay.
It is the weakest scene across the board. Bill Murray's performance, I don't want to harp on into it because, as you can tell maybe by the rest of this podcast, after that scene, I think from that scene on, he's gold. Like, I think he's shooting, like, jokes being lame or dated aside, his performance is solid from that point forward. But he's horrible in that scene. Claire is just a weak character that I don't see this person leading anything. Honestly, I don't buy the character at that moment. The people that help work with her there are incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. They are not. They are doing a bad job, which is bad because Bill Murray needs to be sympathetic there, but be wrong. But if he's right and an asshole on top of it, it's bad. Right. Totally. Because you don't point out people. Anyway, And so then you also have all the people and their performances, and I don't like when people are, I don't know. I get weird when mental illness is used as a punching line like this. That's my thing. I'm not the only one, I bet, but you know. And so it's just and it weakens Bill Murray for the rest of the movie. It doesn't, but see, I never saw this. I'll get into that later. Like, this scene does more damage than good for this movie. But John, what gets your lump of coal?
I'm gonna take it right to the top, and I'm gonna give my lump of coal to Richard Donner.
Ooh!
R.I.P. Here's my lump of coal for you.
Ooh!
So I don't. Obviously, Richard Donner is not a bad director. Obviously, right?
I know. I'm simultaneously responding to the choice and the chutzpah.
So here's the thing, right? If there is a thing that brings this movie down consistently, it's the confusing nature of Bill Murray's performance. And when I originally watched this movie, my reaction was, I'm going to give this lump of coal to Bill Murray because his performance is all over the place. And while it has its like strong moments, it really shoots itself in the foot early on and then struggles to recover. But what is clear to me from reading about this movie is that he had one idea of what this character should be, and that Richard Donner had a much worse idea, and that Bill Murray and the writers had like sat down and like figured out what this movie should be like, and that Richard Donner just wasn't on board with that, or didn't get it, didn't understand how to work with a comedic actor, whatever the situation was. So no disrespect to Richard Donner as a director and as like a figure in Hollywood or whatever, but I would say that he is ultimately responsible for the worst of this movie.
Here's the deal with Mr. Donner and this scene and your choice here. You picked Donner as a macro, but I think we can boil it down to your turkey and my coal. We picked the two different extremes of Bill Murray's performance. You picked the best version of his performance. And I picked the worst, and I think that's what we're talking about when you pick your coal, Richard Donner. And those violent mood swings between the two. Yeah, I disagree with you that, I mean, Bill Murray's very bad at certain points, but I would say that his overall good in this keeps him afloat. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, no, my thing is, there are moments where he is like bad Frank that are good because they are subtle and controlled, and you can tell it's like, this is the performance he wants to be giving, right? The scene where he's with his brother in the street making fun of the jazz musicians, for example, right? And even some elements of that first scene with the Scrooge promo. But I think that scenes like that one in the sewer, or like his kind of breakdown at the end, would be way better if his performance earlier on was more subtle. Right? Like more sarcastic and less like screaming. And that was the thing explicitly from Richard Donner. Bill Murray was like, he just kept asking me to be louder and louder and louder on every take, to the point where I felt like I was just screaming every line. Right? That's an explicit Bill Murray quote. So I'm not going to put this mess on Bill Murray because he knew that was garbage. Right? That's Richard Donner's direction. So it lands in his lap.
Or Bill Murray is smart enough to know that was a crap call on his part, so he's shifting blame.
Sure. I think Bill Murray has enough of a track record that I trust his word in this particular situation.
I'm not trying to be a dick here. I'm just saying this is one person's interpretation of things back there. But fair enough.
Well, James, I think I already know the answer to this, but is this movie in your Christmas future, or is it staying in your Christmas past?
One half of it is. Here's what my edit's going to be. I am going to watch the opening scene. I am going to watch the Marley scene. And I am going to watch From the Ghost of Christmas Pass On. Go to the bathroom during the homeless shelter scene, and then also at the same time make a thing of popcorn, wash my hands, come back
for at least 20 seconds,
and
right?
sit down.
For at least 20
What?
seconds, right? Washing your hands. Yeah.
40.
40. Really, really get that.
40.
40 for Delta.
Well, we got to. Somebody wash their hands for you. Anyway, and then sit down and watch the rest of this movie from Carole King on and just enjoy it. This is in my future in some way, shape, or form. Solid performances. The ending is maybe my favorite Scrooge morning scene.
Wow.
I have one. It's pretty. I mean, for what it's trying to do, what a Scrooge morning scene is trying to do, it is communicating the message
totally
very well. It is pleading deadpan to humanity and to a generation to save its soul and to be a better people. And I think it succeeds on that. But John, is this in your Christmas past or your Christmas future?
So I will say, I want to doff my cap to you, because I think your analysis in this discussion, talking about the kind of like TV generation and the way in which that sort of intersects with a lot of this stuff, has really changed my mind a lot on my overall opinion of this adaptation. I don't know if I would put this up with my favorites, right? I'm like drawing this out a little, I guess, but it has some really genuinely great moments. And I think that as like a Christmas Carol for like kind of 80s boomer generation specifically, it does a really good job. I don't know if I see it in my Christmas future.
Hey, Mary, what's he doing? He's taking a real long time. You think he's going to talk crap about this movie? Yeah, I think he is. I think he really didn't like it, so he's going to put it in his past. Oh, we're going to flame him in the comments section. Oh, yeah, I'm going to leave him a 1-star review. No, don't do that. Also, we're going to have to hear Jimmy talk about the 5-star review thing again. Oh, good point. Should we stop listening? No, let's keep listening. What's he going to say?
But yeah, so I would say I would put it in my Christmas past. I've only seen this once before doing this review of it, and I was like, okay, that was a movie. I don't know if that's my favorite movie I've ever seen. It wasn't bad. And that's kind of still my opinion. It's like not my, like, out of the hundreds of movies that I've seen, I don't think it's, close to something that I would super want to watch again, unless like it happened to be on. So I would put it in like my fond past. Like, it was good. I enjoyed watching it. It's got some great moments, but I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it, if that makes sense. I don't have a super nuanced reason why. I'm just like, it was.
You don't have nostalgia tied to it, though.
That's true. I do not.
I have tons of nostalgia tied to this. This is my brother's favorite version of A Christmas Carol. Like, this is pretty big in my family's household. So, like, wait, what am I doing? My name is like on everything. I looked over all our stuff the other day. I was like, oh, there's my name. I remember at the very beginning of this thing, we're like, so we're going to be anonymous, right? Oh, totally. John, Jimmy. Okay. No, this is going to be big. And this is big in the Zimmerman family. And it still is. We watched it a couple of years ago. I remember, me and the family. But again, we only watch from a certain point forward.
Yeah.
At least I have only ever watched it from a certain point, and I've always enjoyed the scenes I've seen. I really don't like that one scene. I think that scene is Bill Murray at his worst. And that's saying something when you have the tearing the little kid picture scene down. So this movie is more flawed than I remember it being, but the good here outshines the bad.
Certainly. Yeah, I wouldn't take that. I do think that is a deciding factor. Just like coming into it without that nostalgia for like this particular kind of brand of 80s comedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like firmly a late 90s, early 2000s kid when I like sort of was coming up. And this just wasn't one that I saw. So I don't have that same like level of attachment to it.
John, do you remember the night we watched Caddyshack?
Oh, yes, I do.
You had never seen.
That is true. I had not.
It had you. So there's a bit of a. What is our age gap here, John? I'm 34.
31.
You're
It's not much. It's not much of an
So
age
there's
gap.
about
But you are a
But it's
younger
a-
sibling. Like your brother and sister are older.
I had
right?
older
I'm the
siblings. I had
oldest.
uncle. I had some uncles that would share some stuff with me. Like my grandfather had this on
So
VHS.
like our
I
age isn't
remember
different, but
watching
our
at his
generational
house.
influences are very different.
Very different. So I remember watching Caddyshack, and there's a point to this, friends. And it was like 2:00 in the morning, and I was like, "You've never seen Caddyshack? Oh my me meow! We're gonna watch that right now." And it's 2:00 in the morning, and I spent like 20 minutes finding a way to find it because like I just couldn't go on YouTube at the moment, so I had like get it through on demand somehow late night in the morning, and we did it, and we sat there and we watched it, and I have never been more horrified to watch a movie with a friend. I was like, I used to laugh at this. I mean, look, Caddyshack
Bill Murray
is a good movie,
is the
and
best
I enjoy
thing
it.
in that movie. By like
But
by a
if
country
you-
mile, he's the best thing in that movie.
But if you weren't taught at a young age that that's the type of jokes to listen to, right? Like if you're not taught like Caddyshack is funny, you're looking at like what's going on there, what's happening here. That's not funny. That's assault. That's lame. What is going on here? Who did what? What is how? What is where? It is just. It's like
it really is like an
it's different
encapsulation though of like knowing that this is like, you know, Boomer and Gen X, like this is kind of their thing, and watching it, it's like, oh, that's why we have all these problems, because these people grew up like this is funny, not this is extraordinarily
Right.
problematic.
Right. So we've got a.
And that's why they look at us and like
21st
you're so
century-
sensitive. Like they were making jokes about this on Caddyshack, and it's like, no,
Right.
no, you're brainwashed.
Yeah, you had some pretty hardcore jokes there, buddy, and that wasn't even going too blue, you know, like there were some things that were just fine and dandy, and man, it's oh boy, John.
Well,
So, but my point is, like, you had no nostalgia tied to Caddyshack, and those jokes didn't land for you. And I've already been indoctrinated to this. This is already in my, you know, I already like it because I liked it in the past.
yeah, it makes
You
total
know?
sense.
If you, yeah, I still think it is good.
Oh yeah,
I still think it
I'm
is good.
certainly
I think-
not saying that it is not good. Let
Right.
me be clear. This especially on watching it a couple more times is actually a pretty good movie. I would say that it's just very far from my favorite movie and not super close to like my favorite version of A Christmas Carol. So, Jim, what are we going to watch next week?
We're gonna watch A Christmas Carol where Scrooge gets to see some
Yes,
ghosts.
we are. We're actually lingering in the 80s for the next one. We're only jumping a few years earlier to 1984. We are going to be watching, ironically, a TV movie version of A Christmas Carol starring one George C. Patton Scott.
God damn it, Dickens! I read your book.
This is so for a TV movie, a pretty big one for me personally. So I'm very excited to rewatch this and talk about it.
I must have seen this. I know I've seen a clip of it here somewhere. Of course I have, but I don't recall it or anything like that. I have no tangible connection to it. But I am really looking forward to this. I love George C. Scott. This is a man who just goes full regalia on everything. Like, and I don't care if Stanley Kubrick maybe manipulated this poor bastard in giving an over-the-top performance in Dr. Strangelove. That is my all-time favorite performance in almost any movie ever. He's gold in that movie. George C. Scott is amazing, and if you have never seen him in, because older movies, and you can't consume all media, folks. So if you've never seen George C. Scott,
God, at least watch Patton.
Patton, Doctor Strangelove, Exorcist 3.
Ooh.
Dude, the good Exorcist sequel. Like, legit good.
I was not aware that there was a 3 and not aware that it was a good movie because I assumed it like could only go downhill from 2.
Completely different movie. Completely different. Like, I don't want to spoil it for you because it's out there and there's like, all right, I'll give you the comparison. It's 2010 Space Odyssey to 2001
Interesting.
Space Odyssey.
Okay. I've never seen 2010, but I know like of it. Yeah.
2010 is more like we're going to talk about the big world concepts out in the open. Like a Marvel Cinematic Universe conversation. Yeah. Like there is but it's kind of hard to describe. I don't want to ruin it for you, but we should watch that sometime.
Yeah, we can do that.
That's flip. So yeah, we're going to be watching a Christmas Carol next time.
We just haven't been able to hang out in a while, and talking about A Christmas Carol is fine, but like we also want to have a friendship. So
this man's my best friend, okay? Like I haven't been able to hang out with him in over 8 months.
I have 2 children that he's literally never met.
And I really want to hang out with these kids. They seem awesome. I want to hang out with you. I want to hang out with the wife. I want to hang out with the kids. I want to hang out at your place. I want to see everybody, but freaking COVID. Wear your masks, people.
I'm vaccinated.
I'm wearing my mask.
If you have thoughts about Scrooged, or if you have thoughts about the George C. Scott Christmas Carol and you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at jacobmarleyisdead@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. We have all of the fascist social media platforms here at Jacob Marley is Dead, like good little consumers. James, what else can people do if they want to support us?
You're really going to throw to me to be the corporate shill on this one now, buddy?
I certainly am.
Well, you know what? As a good corporate shill, I will definitely beg you to go and leave a 5-star review, sir. Like some more of those. Very nice if we get some more 5-star reviews. Hey, I read them. Okay? You think I haven't read them? I've read them. And the little angry comment in one of them, I know who you're talking about. And it ain't the guy I'm talking to, okay? I am not an angry man. I am a very happy man.
Really.
Shut up.
As always, we have some thank yous. Thank you to Ben DeVries for our opening, closing, and interstitial music. Thank you to Milo Newman for our great podcast cover art. Thank you to Zane and the good folks at That's Not Canon Productions for allowing us to be part of their podcast collective. We're in good company with some really, really great shows that you should check out on their Patreon. And thank you, of course, to you, the listener, who continues to tune into this show as we become less and less hinged going through talking about A Christmas Carol. We appreciate your time and your patronage, and we hope that we can be entertaining and informative for you. And with that, until we see you next time, as Tiny Tim observed,
God bless us, everyone.
On Christmas Day in the morning.